crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
It's not the master race no mo.
Yeah, no, but the crap that they put up with just to play on PC,
You know,
it
this is
blows me
why it's
away.
crazy in
It's
PC
crazy in
land.
PC land. Yeah. No, we were just talking about how like I was watching this video yesterday where it basically like you look at the YouTubers who are playing on PC and the ones who are like always playing with like the latest hardware and they're running these games at like 8K and they're running flawlessly and all this stuff. Those people have a lot of money to burn. The majority of PC gamers are playing games that are broken because they can't render them properly.
Of course.
So they're putting up. I don't understand why they're putting up with it though.
Me neither. I honestly, I don't know. It's,
I saw
I mean,
this
it
video.
used to be that you could
Yeah,
get, I mean, it's only recently, right? Because it
yeah.
used
Only
to be
within the
that
last couple decades.
when not even the last couple of decades, I say within the last
Couple
seven
years or so, maybe.
7 years or so, because
Yeah,
it
you're
used
right.
to be that even a mid-range PC could get you, if you were getting 1080p 60, you were still
Yeah,
doing better than console.
yeah.
Because PS3 was barely at 30 FPS, and that the 360 and the PS3 barely did stable frame rates. So if you were
Yeah.
playing on PC and you had a decent PC and you were getting 1080p, you were already better because they were doing 720p, and if you're getting 60, that was great. Problem is the consoles have leaped. The consoles have leaped and bound and have caught, to me, in more or less caught up with PC or closed the gap with PC performance.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching a video last night about that from GameRanks,
Hmm.
and they were talking about how what's happened is that because there's so many configurations on PC, that publishers are obviously optimizing for console first and then port to PC afterwards. So PC
Hmm.
getting the leftovers kind of. But
Yeah, they're in second. They're second string now.
but of course they have to be. But this is the thing, right? Because there's no one PC platform, this has always been a thing. They just never talked about it. There have always been, I would say, probably 70% of people playing on PC who are playing, as you said, either some weird buggy game, some like it's either like ratchet, the ridiculous low res, or just having lots of issues and glitches, and they just
Hmm.
don't say nothing
Yeah. No, they
because
don't say nothing. Yeah, I was watching the video, and the guy was playing Hogwarts, and it was buggy. Like every 5 minutes, there was a serious issue with the frame rate or something, and then it was like every time he went into a crowded room, the load, like the draw distance was horrendous, and he was playing on low, and so he was explaining that like he had a computer that cost him like $2,000-3,000, but it was just a couple years old,
Yep, that's
and
all it takes.
yeah, and it can't run it at ultra. It has to run everything on low. He's like, I have no shadows, I have nothing.
What's funny is that what seems to have happened is that because they're developing for the consoles first, the consoles are getting the better features the way they explained it even in the video I watched was that he's like PCs have a fundamental difference with a console. Consoles, especially the PlayStation consoles from PS4 onward, have unified RAM.
Right.
PCs have the PC RAM and then they have VRAM.
Video RAM.
Where so he's like, so if you have a game that you've made shaders to run on PlayStation, and those shaders are using the same RAM that the CPU is using, that the UI is using, that everybody's using, you can share information between the shaders to do whatever because it's there in RAM. But then if you go on PC, those shaders are supposed to be sending, they're programmed to send information into RAM, but then the PC's like, well, yeah, but which RAM? And sometimes because of how the RAM works, it needs to be in both places at the same time.
Uh-huh.
It needs to be in video RAM and it needs to be in system RAM.
That's
Because
just
depending on the
impossible.
time, he may be in one spot or several.
Or several. Yeah, because it's
Several.
impossible for the computer to distinguish which one it needs if it's programmed for console, which has a centralized RAM that uses
Exactly.
everything.
So like, and then the thing is, when you only have a certain amount of development time, let's say 4 years, from start to finish, and you've got 4 consoles to put it out on, and then PC, you're like, all right, look, we can only optimize so much, and then we'll have to do it after post-launch.
Yeah.
But then the problem comes in that PC also, there's no one platform for PC, so it's all so segmented because you got AMD CPUs and you got AMD GPUs, and then you have the NVIDIA CPUs and you have the Intel CPUs. Well, you got NVIDIA GPUs rather, and then you've got different versions of each GPU within each one of those things.
Yeah.
You got different motherboards with different bus speeds on them. You don't know if you can provide minimum specs, but you don't know if this person's running a 2 terabyte hard disk or if they're running an SSD.
Yeah.
Now, if you got a game developed for PS5, you know everybody got an SSD. So maybe your game, and this is something I was reading today. Naoki, the producer for Final Fantasy 16, was saying one of the reasons why it's exclusive, especially to next gen, is that the combat makes a lot of use of the PS5's SSD.
Right. For those quick load times.
Not even for the quick load. He said the combat. So I'm guessing that it must be for effects and stuff that are happening on screen. Because I remember Mark Cerny talked about how what they would do is they could literally load what's behind the player faster than the camera could turn.
Yeah.
So maybe they're doing like a deferred rendering where they're not actually, the GPU isn't rendering what's behind you, what's out of view, and it only does it when it knows the camera's going to look at it.
Yeah, you can
as
tell,
opposed
like,
to
you're
creating the
turning around.
world all the time, right? So it uses that. Now, try and put that on a PC where you might be running an SSD, an NVMe SSD that's not as fast as the PS5's.
Yeah.
You can't do it. The game's not going to
No.
run. And that's like something like the combat will be broken.
Mm-hmm.
So therein lies a problem where they're like, yeah, it'll come to PC eventually, but we got to do a lot of work to make sure that it'll run. Now, here's the other problem. NVIDIA and all these other jokers, and I guess it's all of them because it's not like it's NVIDIA alone. All they do is put out a new daggone generation of GPUs every damn year.
Every year, yeah.
And
insane.
it's different all the time. It's like I remember when they were first talking about the 1080s, the GTX 1080s, and then they're like, oh no, we go into the 20, the RTX, RTX, because we're getting the ray tracing. And then the RTX 2080, and that was the RTX 3090, and now we're on the RTX 4090 Ti, and I'm like, everyone they just jumped to another one, and these daggone cards are thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's happening now is that because the consoles have better specs than they did long before, they're getting better performance out of them. And to get the same performance out of a PC, they need the higher level of overhead. Now, they got to brute force it. Now, if they had time to develop for PC specifically, they'd be able to get way more juice out of it. But they don't, because the games don't sell on PC because Giga's either on Game Pass or they just straight up pirating.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on console, I was reading on today that for the 6th or 7th week in a row, in the UK anyway, Hogwarts Legacy has been the #1 sold game. And someone commented, it's crazy. He's like, well, this is what happens when you don't launch on a subscription service. But they're like, this game is silly.
It proves the model wrong.
It proves the model wrong. But he's like, this game is consistently #1 in physical sales at $70 a pop.
Yeah, that's.
So it's like, imagine the money. Whereas on PC, somebody's already selling a cracked version, or just you're gone on the Pirate Bay and you torrented the.
You torrent it, yeah.
So
yeah, easy. But you see, like Phil Spencer's like, it's not about the money; it's about sending a message.
For real.
A master.
Game Pass burns.
Game Pass
Game
burns.
Pass burns.
He's like, he throws the match into a bunch of like physical copies of Hogwarts. Game Pass burns. Yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem.
There's like a what you call it, like a Hogwarts like developer on top of the stack of the physical.
Yeah.
Yeah, tied up. He hits him in the face with a copy of his own game.
It's Kevin Levine.
Copies
Like,
burn.
yep. He's got it's like Kevin, what's his name? Kevin Levine, the
Ken.
not Bioshock. Ken Levine. It's Ken Levine on top with like a copy of Fallout 76 in his mouth, like woo!
Dang. That's
Dang.
a mix.
But
yeah,
no,
so it's
look,
horrible.
the thing about this is like I remember playing on PC back in the 90s, and the landscape was totally different. Like back then, you could say that PC had the upper hand because of the graphics, and when they were doing the Voodoo FX chips, I remember those cards would come out every 5 years, and the development time on each card, like would take time because they had games that were coming out that needed to run with these cards, and then they needed to give time for the consumer to purchase and to buy the games that were coming out. But it seems like they've picked up the momentum on these damn graphics cards. You wouldn't think there's a chip shortage.
I know, right? Well, they're creating the daggone chip shortage.
Yeah.
Because I mean, why do? And I'm sorry, like, what was the performance bottleneck on the NVIDIA 3090 that needed to be overcome by the 4090? What?
Right. What? There's nothing.
Like, what was it? Was the ray tracing not ray traced enough? Like, what else did they need? I don't know. And the thing is, like, before you knew what you had, you'd boxed it and slapped it on lunchbox.
Slapped it on a plastic Alienware.
Yeah, that's basically what they're doing before anybody can come up with anything.
Yeah, remember Alienware used to sell pre-built PCs just to make it easy for everybody, because it started getting a little crazy when they were doing that whole like people were running 2 graphics cards connected together, and it started getting a little crazy. For real. It started getting a little crazy. I forgot what it was called. It was the big craze back in the early 2000s. DLI something. It was because there were some cards that were supported that you can buy 2 identical ones and they were run both simultaneously, and that would like boost performance, of course, but then also like even out workload between both cards, so one card's not doing everything. But
that's crazy. I mean,
yeah.
I guess that was the idea before dual core.
Right, and the Alienware Alienware came out with PCs that were already pre-built, so it'd make it simpler. You just wanted to buy this, and then they would guarantee that you would be able to run
Crysis.
I know, Crysis. No, guarantee that you would be able to run for like at least 10 years.
Anything else?
But now you can't guarantee a month.
Nah, it's ridiculous. But it's because then it's like, this is the thing, right? Like you can actually squeeze a lot of performance. And that's the whole console model versus the PC model anyway.
Yeah.
That you can get great performance once you know the hardware well enough and have become familiar with it for years. But for some reason, the PC model has turned to just brute force your way through it. And if it doesn't, if you're dropping 2 frames, just buy the next graphics card. Why people have indulged this, I do not know.
It's the rich.
Yeah, it has to be.
Rich.
I mean, because when you look at it, man, like the price of these PCs that these jiggers are running, thousands of dollars.
Yeah. No,
And
no.
it's like,
these have got up to $10,000.
And I'm like,
easily.
to play what? Battlefield? Like,
No, I know.
it's like there is no game out there worth that. It's not worth that. It is not worth spending $3,000 on a graphics card alone to say, oh, I can run Call of Duty Warzone at 8K, 120. whoop-de-doo. Great.
I know, right?
But it's like, and that's the thing. It's like, and then on top of that, they can't even do that. And that's what someone else was complaining about in our comments randomly. They're just like, it's like, why are we? He's like, I'm sick of PC because, I have to keep doing this, fake DLSS, basically the AI version of checkerboarding to get decent performance. So like basically what NVIDIA has done is like, hey, we're making the most powerful graphics cards available, but it's still not working. So what we'll do is we're actually going to use an AI algorithm to take a lower internal resolution and interpolate it to make it look better. Now, it seems to work most of the time, but this is the thing. So it's like you got a RTX 3090, but you're actually running the game at like 1080p, 1440p internally, and the DLSS is then upscaling that to 4K.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they're getting we're getting great performance, blah, blah, blah. Now, hey, that's a great trick. If you can do something like that on a console, you could extend that console by that life by another 5 years. But the problem is like now you and this is what I don't understand, because I've seen it on Digital Foundry all the time. It doesn't like annoy me, but it should annoy me, because it's like, okay, they'll do like their console analysis, and then they'll have Alex come and do the PC analysis, and he always has to do like, in whatever he's doing, he has to do like his recommended settings and then optimized settings. So he's like, okay, so this game runs like this on this hardware. So what you got to do is like decrease the shadow quality to medium, because it doesn't make a difference, and then do this and tweak, and you got to go in there and tweak every game. I'm like, why would I ever want to be that involved?
Yeah.
Like,
I just want to try it out.
Every single game that I play, I have to go into settings and tweak this and tweak that and change this. I mean, I presume that the settings save after you do that, but it's still like super technical.
Saves. Yeah, but it saves, but they never keep it like that. They're always moving it around.
Well, yeah, and then there's a patch and it throws everything off.
Yeah, it does. It does. And then the problem is like it's because they want something to talk about. It's like cars, It's like basically like, oh yeah, well, I can't just own a car. I have to know everything about the car, and I have to tell people that I've customized it. It's like it's just one of those things where people feel the need to want to know and talk about, and then they feel like they're part of a community when they do it. It's all about feeling like they want to belong. That's all. That's really what
I guess.
And console, for real. Yeah, for real. And then console is basically only ever I own this and this is what I like playing, and that's it. And there's nothing really that you do except buy the console and buy the game, which anybody can do. So they can't just leave it at that. They have to. There has to be. Oh, well, I play Hogwarts with these settings that work for me, and this is what I found. You know what I mean? It's like, who cares? Are you playing Hogwarts? Yeah. Okay.
Are you playing Hogwarts?
Are you playing Hogwarts? Yeah.
Hogwarts.
How is your experience?
Get to the Hogwarts.
Get to the, like, how is your experience? Well, it's just it's difficult sometimes because I have to kind of turn off my monitor and turn it back on because it just VSync is off because of this. I'm waiting for the next patch. And like, okay, well, I've been playing it day one and it's fine.
For real.
On my
that's the other thing that
console.
pisses me off, especially with Digital Foundry. Oh, but with VRR, I'm like, shut up about freaking VRR. I don't care. Like, let the game. If the game can run, the game can run. Why? Basically, to me, VRR is just a cop out. It's like, oh, the game doesn't run at a good frame rate, but if you have the right monitor, you won't notice. And it's like,
notice, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like, no. There's a standard, and the standard should be met. The standard is 60 frames per second. That's how often our TVs refresh. Let the daggone game refresh at that rate. And if I don't want to be turning on settings. Oh, if you turn on VRR on your console and you get a HDMI 2.1 HDMI cable and you get the LG C24-400 with this is the VRR capable screen, or you get a G-Sync monitor, and it's like, no. I got a TV. I'm plugging up my stuff. It's better play. That's what I paid for. But
Yeah.
like they're into all like I guess they they enjoy all this tinkering. And it's like, but who has the time to be tinkering with every single game that you play?
Scrambling a bit.
Scrambling a bit. Oh God, should have bought a cart.
Should have bought
Should have bought a console.
For real. I mean, you would spend the thing. The thing about console is it's always been the cheaper alternative, but with the best performance. Because you get what you pay for, and that's it. It's like when people wanted to play, Super Mario World, they bought the Super Nintendo. When people wanted to play, Tekken 2, they bought the PS1, and they ran, and there was no problems, and we didn't have to think about it. And that's the thing, is that it took no thought to put it in the console and press the power button. It took no thought. It took no tinkering. It was just there, and that's why people took it for granted. And that power is out now.
Yeah, and that power is out now.
John, the people we love are dying. Tim and Lex and Alan.
And Alan?
Alan? The raptor turns around. Alan?
The game,
Alan?
the franchises we love
Alan?
are dying.
Are dying. Yeah, the thing is that they didn't appreciate the fact you could just press play and you're playing the game.
Say, mommy, look at the frames.
Look at the frames. We need to make some memes and send them to DF.